Venice is one of the most photographed cities on Earth. You've seen the gondolas, you've seen the palaces rising straight out of the water, you've seen the crowds in St. Mark's Square. But behind the postcard image lies a city full of engineering marvels, political intrigue, cultural revolutions, environmental threats, and centuries of global influence. In this video, we're breaking down Venice, how it was built, how it became powerful, why it's sinking, how it's fighting back, and what the future of the floating city might look like. This is Venice Explained. Let's start with the most obvious question: how do you build a city on water? Venice stands on more than 100 small islands in a shallow lagoon in northeastern Italy. The early settlers arrived around the 5th century, fleeing invasions after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. They chose the lagoon for protection. The muddy marshlands were nearly impossible for invading armies to cross, but building there required radical engineering. The Venetians drove millions of wooden piles deep into the mud. On top of those piles, they placed wooden platforms, then stone foundations, and finally brick and marble structures. And here's the surprising part: the wood didn't rot. Because the piles are submerged in oxygen-poor water, bacteria can't break them down easily. Over time, the wood hardened, almost fossilizing beneath the city. That's the invisible foundation holding Venice up today. Venice wasn't just a beautiful city, it was a global empire. By the Middle Ages, the Republic of Venice controlled major trade routes between Europe and the East. Spices, silk, precious metals, and knowledge flowed through its ports. The city was governed by an elected leader known as the Doge, but real power was shared among wealthy merchant families. It was an oligarchic republic, stable, strategic, and commercially aggressive. Venice's navy was one of the strongest in the Mediterranean. Its shipyards, known collectively as the Arsenal, could produce warships at astonishing speed for the time. Trade made Venice rich. Wealth built palaces. Palaces shaped the skyline that we recognize today. Venetian architecture tells a story of cultural exchange. Unlike cities that evolved with a single dominant style, Venice absorbed influences from Byzantium, the Islamic world, and Western Europe. Domes and mosaics reflect Eastern connections. Gothic arches showcase European evolution. Renaissance symmetry demonstrates artistic innovation. Buildings weren't just homes, they were statements. The Grand Canal became a display corridor for merchant dynasties competing for prestige. Each facade signaled success, and because Venice built vertically, directly along the water, the entire city feels theatrical, like a stage set floating on the lagoon. The gondola isn't just romantic imagery. Historically, gondolas were the primary form of transportation for wealthy Venetians. At one point, thousands operated daily. Today, they're primarily for visitors, but their design remains unique. Notice how gondolas lean slightly to one side. That asymmetry balances the gondolier's weight as they row. Each one is handcrafted, following strict traditional guidelines. So, while tourism reshaped their purpose, craftsmanship still defines them. One of the most searched topics about Venice today is simple: is Venice sinking? The answer is yes, but it's complicated. Venice faces two simultaneous problems. First, subsidence. The land beneath the city is gradually compacting. In the 20th century, industrial groundwater extraction accelerated this process. Second, rising sea levels. Climate change is increasing global sea levels, directly impacting low-lying coastal cities like Venice. The result is more frequent flooding events known as acqua alta, when high tides push water into streets and squares. These floods aren't new, but they are becoming more severe. Another trending topic: overtourism. Venice receives millions of visitors annually, far more than its resident population. Day trippers often outnumber locals by a wide margin, especially during peak summer months. This influx strains infrastructure, increases housing costs, and reshapes local commerce toward souvenir-driven economies. Large cruise ships were once a major source of controversy, passing close to the historic center and raising environmental concerns. In recent years, regulations have restricted large vessels from entering the central lagoon area, aiming to reduce damage and preserve the city's fragile ecosystem. Venice now experiments with visitor management strategies, including entry fees for day visitors during peak periods. The goal is balance, preserve tourism revenue while protecting livability. Venice's population has steadily declined for decades. Rising costs, limited job diversity, and tourism-driven housing demand have pushed many residents to the mainland. The historic center now has fewer than 50,000 residents, a dramatic drop from the 20th century. This demographic shift raises important questions. Can Venice remain a living city, or will it become an open-air museum? Local initiatives aim to encourage long-term residency and diversify the economy beyond tourism, but reversing population decline is challenging. Venice's influence extends beyond politics and trade. It shaped art, music, and printing. During the Renaissance, Venice became one of Europe's leading centers for publishing. Printed books spread knowledge across the continent. Venetian painters revolutionized color techniques. Composers contributed to the evolution of classical music. Today, Venice remains culturally relevant through global events like its art and architecture biennales, attracting artists, architects, and thinkers from around the world. The city continues to function as a creative stage. Venice has always inspired myth. Its narrow alleys, masked festivals, and reflective canals created a sense of intrigue. The tradition of elaborate masks, especially during Carnival, symbolized social freedom, temporarily dissolving class boundaries. Writers and filmmakers have long used Venice as a setting for romance, espionage, and psychological drama. Its atmosphere does half the storytelling work. So, what does the future hold? Climate models suggest a continued sea level rise throughout the 21st century. Urban planners debate adaptive strategies, elevated walkways, reinforced foundations, expanded barrier systems. Technology may preserve Venice physically, but preserving its identity, that's more complex. Can it remain authentic while adapting to global tourism? Can it sustain a real community while remaining one of the world's top bucket list destinations? The next few decades will shape the answer. Despite the challenges, Venice remains extraordinary. It represents human ingenuity, building a city where logic said not to. It represents trade-driven globalization centuries before the modern era. It represents artistic innovation born from cultural crossroads. And today, it represents the front line of climate adaptation for historic cities worldwide. Venice isn't just beautiful, it's a case study in resilience. When you see Venice on screen, gondolas drifting, light reflecting off water, stone glowing at sunset, you're not just seeing a tourist destination, you're seeing over 1,500 years of engineering, ambition, art, and adaptation. Venice has reinvented itself before. The question now is whether it can do it again. If you found this deep dive valuable, consider exploring the more stories about the world's most fascinating cities. Because sometimes the most famous places still hold the most surprising truths, and Venice is proof of that.